Alright guys, so we're going to get started with some intro to rigging. For those of you who don't know what parenting is, you guys need to become familiar with the concept before we go into rigging, because rigging is going to be about setting constraints and parenting. So we need to know what that is and how it works compared to constraints, so that when we set up our character and we have joints, we know what we're parenting to, and then when we're using constraints and when we use one over the other. So this video is going to be sort of an intro to rigging. This is like a pre-rigging lesson. So we're going to get started into this. So I'm going to create a sphere and I'm going to show you what parenting does. So if I create a sphere here very quickly, let's move this aside. I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, and make a smaller one. So I'm trying to keep these videos shorter now because I don't want to spend like 30 minutes on the other videos that I used to. So I'm going to try to fly through these. So you can see here I have a bigger sphere and a smaller sphere. And what parenting does is it allows you to control one thing. So I'm going to move this one essentially. And when I move this one, I want this one to follow. So usually when you say parenting, you usually say a parent and a child. So what that means is the parent is going to be like the leader and the child is the follower. So I know it gets kind of confusing when people start saying, oh, select the child and then parent it to that, and then you grab the leader, and then so it's just a way to describe which one is the leader and then which one is the follower. So they say parent and then they say child. So the parent is the leader and the child is the follower. So with this, what you can do is there's a neat trick to do that. So let's say I wanted to grab this one and move it around, like I said, and I can even rotate it. And as I'm moving this one's going to be the parent. As I'm moving it and rotating it and scaling it or whatever it is I'm doing, this one is going to be doing the exact same thing that the parent is doing. Right? That's why they call it like a parent-child connection. I know it gets weird. Don't worry about the technical words that they use, because the first time I heard it, I was like, a parent? Oh yeah, the mom and the dad and the family, and they're gonna have babies. It's nothing like that. So it's just technical words. So this one is gonna be the parent. This one's gonna be the child. So in order to make that connection so that it works, there's this little shortcut that I learned in school. You just say child parent P. So if you repeat that, child parent P, that's how you're gonna parent this connection between those two. So if you select the child, this is what it means, child parent P. So you're gonna select the child, then you're gonna select the parent. So holding shift and clicking on it will select the parent. And then once you have them selected in that specific order, child parent, you press just P, regular P. Don't hold shift or anything, just P. So that's it. Now if I select the parent, notice it selected the child as well. So if I just move this around, now the child is following. So I can rotate this and the child follows. I can even rescale this and the child rescales as well. So that's what parenting does. It allows you to grab one of these, and then that controls something else. And then I can even go further down and create another sphere, and then have this be a parent of that smaller sphere. So you can continue to parent these and you can have things working together. So when we go into rigging, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a lot of parenting and constraints, but I'll explain constraints in another video, but that's how it works. So now let's say you're still confused. You're like, I don't understand what we just did. Well, I can show you what we did. If you go up here to Window, Outliner, I'm going to hold Control Shift and click just so that I can have it out here on my shelf. So I can click on it here easier. And if I look here, you see it says Sphere 1. And then notice here you have a little plus. So if you click on that, now we have both of the spheres. So sphere 1 is the big one. So I'm going to rename this one to big sphere. And this one is a smaller sphere. So I'm going to say, oh crap, small sphere. Alright, so if you look here in your outliner, notice that the big sphere has this little line coming down like that, connecting to the small sphere. So this is kind of like layers. This is kind of like where you have the outliner actually is like a library. So you see everything that's in your scene, and you can also see how things are connected to each other. So it's not just a library. You can see how things connect to each other. So if you can see here the little line thing, right? So this means that this one, notice that this one is more to the left, and then this one's like to the right of it. So that means that these are connected. So this one is the child, and then this one is the parent. So that's how you can tell which one is the parent, which one's the child. So you can actually even select them here. So if I select the big sphere, you can just grab these. I can select the small sphere, and I can move this off of it. So that's another advantage for parenting. When you parent something, the child, this smaller one, can move independently. And what I mean by that is you can actually grab it and move it away. And I can do whatever it is I want. I can rotate it, I can scale it even smaller or bigger, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can mess with this one separately from the parent. So that's something that's going to be very different when we do constraints, because constraints won't allow you to mess with the child like we are right now. So notice that we moved it further apart from the parent. I can still go back to the parent, but they still work together. So I can grab this, I can rescale it, I can rotate, I can, whatever it is I want to do. These both still have that parent-child relationship. So that's what they call it in Maya. So I don't want to get too technical with that, but that's how this works. Alright, so I can move this, zero this out. So now let's take it a step further and create another object here. Polygon. Let me do a cube just so that we can see that it's different. Now I'm going to make it even smaller. So let's say now that I want, so this is a parent and then this is a child. So now let's say I want this one, this cube, to be connected to this child, right? So before I get too deep into this, let's just focus on these two. Forget about the connections. It still has a connection, the parent-child relationship, but let's forget about these two spheres and let's just focus on these. So if I wanted this one to move when this one moves, right, just like we did with the big sphere, so this one's going to be the child, this one's now going to be a parent. So if you remember the little trick, child, parent, P. So we select the child first, child, shift, select the parent, and then press P. Okay, so now what happened? If you look out here in your outliner, notice we only see the big sphere. So let's go in here to the little plus. Make sure you go under display and you hide shapes, because sometimes if you see shapes, you'll get a lot more of these little pluses, which they don't really do much. So it looks like we have a lot of stuff in here, but really you're displaying shapes. So make sure you hide shapes, so now it's more simplified. And notice now we have the big sphere, we have the small sphere, and we have, I'm gonna call this tiny cube, a little tiny cube. And so what do you think this is gonna happen? Looking at this, you see the big sphere is connected to the small sphere, and the small sphere is connected to the tiny cube. So it's kind of like a little train. So if I select the big sphere, it actually selects all three of them. So as I move this one, all three of them will move, because this is a parent and then that's the child, and then this acts like a parent as well to this child. So if I scale this one, all of them are going to scale up. If I rotate this one, all the children will rotate as the parent does. Then I can scale, right? I can move this. So that's what child and parent, well actually that's what parenting does. That's what we call it, parenting. So one last thing I want to show you. Let me delete all this and do it one more time. So I'm going to do a sphere, and I want to show you what happens in the channel box. So I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to make this one smaller. So I'm going to close this out. Now we know what happens here. So I'm going to grab the child, parent, P. So there, just parent them. So this is the big, and this one is the small. And I'm going to close this out. And I'm going to freeze transformations. That's something that we're going to learn later on when it comes into rigging. So freeze transformations, what that means is, notice when we create the spheres, it creates them here at the origin at 0, 0. So you can zero all this out, right? And then, oh, right now it's already parented to the big sphere, so it's gonna go inside of it. I don't want that. So let's say I want this to be the 0, 0 of where the sphere is located. So if you look here, you already have some numbers in here. I want all this to be at 0, all the rotate to be 0, and the scale is gonna be reset back to 1. Same thing with the big sphere. So I can come in here to modify freeze transformation and then check out what happened. Everything's set to 0, back to default, even the child. So that's what I want. Now the reason why I did that is because I want to show you what parenting does to when we start moving this around. So if I grab the parent, notice everything is on 0 and the child is also on 0. If I grab this and I move it, obviously we're getting some translations, and if I rotate it, we're getting some rotations, and I can rescale it. No, I don't want to rescale it. So I have these numbers here. If I go to the child, notice that the child doesn't have any of that stuff transferred over, right? So this is a big benefit of doing parenting. When we do constraints, it will actually share that information over. So the parent has, all these types of movements, and if you go to the child, you might be thinking, well, how come the child doesn't have those movements, since it was over here and now we rotated it and now it's up here, but everything is still at 0. Well, this is the benefit of that, of doing a parent, because everything will still stay at 0. And I can come in here and zero this out, and it'll snap back to my original spot. So that is the benefit of parenting. When this is just an intro, but I want to show you specifics when we go into rigging. I have this little setup here. You'll notice that parenting doesn't just work with objects, it works with controllers or curves. So I already rigged this. So I added some joints here. I'm going to show you the joints. So you can see it's just a cylinder with 3 joints and 3 controllers. So when we get into rigging, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to have joints, controllers, and then these controllers are going to rotate the bones. Alright, that's how rigging works. But I want to show you this and why this doesn't work right now. So if I grab this and I rotate it, notice that moves that bone, and then that bone moves the cylinder, right? So I'm going to hide that. You don't need to see this. Just want to focus on the controllers right now. So I can rotate this, and that works fine. And I can zero this out, and it goes back to default. And then I can grab this middle controller and watch what happens. If I rotate this, notice that it's not rotating the way that it should. When I rotate this controller should be moving sideways like this one, right? I can zero this back out, and then when I grab this bottom one, both of these controllers should be rotating, but they're not, which is making this look awkward. So I'm going to zero this out. So what I want to show you with this is that now we need to, in order for these to follow each other, just like we saw in the other tutorial, the other lessons with the spheres, was we need to parent these. So remember the parenting, how we saw with the big sphere and the small sphere. If I rotate the big sphere, the little one will rotate with it, right? So that's the same idea that we need to do here. So if I grab this one, And here's another thing, you need to think more like logically, actually more technical. That's a better word, because now you need to think about it. Which one is going to be a child and which one is going to be a parent, right? So if you think about it, this one is at the very tip, so this one could be like an end, and then this one could be a parent. So when I move this one, the middle one, this one will be a child to this, right? So we can actually connect that right now. So watch, select the child, remember child, parent, P. So now this one, if you remember the last thing that I showed you right now, this one can move independently, just like the little sphere, right? It's moving around, it doesn't care. And then you can grab, watch, I can leave this like that. I can grab the parent now, and then the parent is going to move that child. So I can move these together. It looks like a little cigarette butt. You know, when you put away a cigarette butt, it's kind of what that reminds me of. So then we can zero this out, and then I can rotate this. So that's how it should be working, right? So that's this is a parent and that's the child. So remember, we had three spheres, or we had two spheres, and then we had the little cube. So it works with a bunch of these. We can parent as many as we like. There's no limits. So now if we think about it, this middle controller is now treated as a child to this one. Let's say we want this one to be the main parent, right? So if I rotate this one down, I want both of these to rotate with it. So let me undo that. I can, we don't select this one and that one and then say make this one the parent. We actually just worry about this one, right? 'Cause notice if I select this one automatically gets selected. So I can go to my outliner and show you. So now all I have to do is grab this this one. So this is going to be the child. Select the parent and press P. So now if I grab this bottom one and rotate it, notice how all of these are moving with it. So I can even grab this one and rotate it however I want, because now these two, so this one is now the child of this one, right? So this one can move independently however it wants. Whee! And then this one is now like the child of the middle one. So now this one can move independently how it wants to. So that is how we do parenting when we're going to do rigging. So you can see how before we did the parenting it looked broken, but now that we parented the controllers to each other, it seems to work fine, right? And I can come in here and zero this out. I can zero this out, and I can grab this one and zero it out. So now let's say you wanted to undo a parent. So in order to undo a parent, or to unparent it, pretty much what we're doing, you can do the same thing that we're doing here. So parent is P, to unparent is Shift P. So to unparent, you need to select the child. So the child is going to let go of the parent. So I would select this child, and then this is going to be removed from this one. So do Shift P, and then when I move this one doesn't move anymore because it's not parented to this controller anymore. And if I want to remove now this controller from this one, remember we did the parent here. Now this one is a child of this one, so I would grab the child, Shift P. And now if I rotate this one, you notice that this one won't follow it because it's not the child anymore. So now this thing looks kind of broken, right? It's not working the way that it was working before. So that's what parenting does when we get into rigging. Rigging is mostly used for parenting is mostly used for rigging. So when we have all these controllers set up on our character and we want to rotate, say this was an elbow, right? We want the elbow to rotate, and this was like a wrist. Well, we need that wrist to follow, parent that. we need that wrist to rotate properly. So this is the end of that lesson. So that's what I want to show you. So I can grab the child, parent, P. And then as I rotate this one, again, look over here, everything is set to 0, which is cool. I can rotate this one however I want. I can grab this child, everything is still set to 0 because I haven't moved it. That's the benefit of parenting. Everything still remains at 0. And then I can even grab this and rotate it. So that's pretty cool. I hope you understand this lesson. I have a book coming out for rigging, which is for intro. If you've never rigged before, you can check out my website, animationmethods.com. I have a book that's going to teach you how to fully rig a character, because I'm going to make some like intro videos for this. So if you guys get a hold of the book, follow along, and I have some videos that are going to help you out. So I hope this video helped you out a lot. I'm going to zero this out. Boom, very quickly. So that is how you do parenting. Child, parent, P. Alright, catch you later.